On today's show, Glen Willis is back, and this time we're talking about the 2025 NBA draft with a week and a half until the big day. We'll get into some prospects to watch and much more coming up.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 1996 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you here in mid-June with about a week and a half until the 2025 NBA draft. Today's podcast is brought to you by the folks at FanDuel Sportsbook. And right now, if you're a new customer, get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins at FanDuel. The place to go is FanDuel.com to get started. I also want to encourage you at the top of the show, as I always do, to make Locked On Hawks your first listen each and every day. Check us out and subscribe to the show anywhere you find your podcasts. YouTube, Apple, Spotify, etc. And be sure to tell your friends and colleagues and family and anybody in your life that enjoys the Atlanta Hawks about this podcast. I'll be joined in a moment by Glen Willis of ATL 29. And Glen's been gracious enough to spend a lot of time with me already this summer with some player capsules. In fact, our most recent episode on this feed was Glen and I talking about Clint Capella. Probably going to be the farewell to Capella in some respects, the end of an era, if you want to put it that way, but also just another player capsule that is in the bank now in conjunction with some reporting that's been out there from me and other people that Clint's probably not going to come back to the Hawks this summer. But also, that was a Friday night show. Here we are over the weekend heading into a new week. And we'll put the player capsules on hold for a couple of weeks now because of the draft and free agency and summer league, all that stuff. We'll have more with Glen later on. But because we were recording some capsules, I also took the opportunity to talk to Glen about the draft for about a half hour. So I want to share that with you here to begin a new week. We talked about all kinds of prospects on this discussion: Will Riley, Liam McNeeley, Collin Murray-Boyles, Asa Newell, etc. And that was a fun chat with Glen, as always. I have hopefully some more guests lined up for the rest of this week about the NBA draft, as we are fast and furious now until the big day next Wednesday. But anyway, please subscribe to the podcast, and we'll dive right back in now with myself and Glen Willis. I'm joined once again by my friend Glen Willis of ATL and 29, of Patreon, of Peachtree Hoops, of the internet. Glen, I'm throwing you a curveball right now. This is not a player capsule. This is going to be NBA draft talk. How are you?
I'm good. The draft's going to be here before we know it, so probably good to talk through some of those things. Yeah, I feel like I have like 80% grasp with this broader class, and so. It'll be fun to talk about what do we think the Hawks are going to prioritize and what players maybe fit that or whatever else you want to do in conversation.
Yeah, I mean, we're if people are watching on YouTube, you will probably have clocked that we're wearing the same clothes as a couple player capsules. Glen's giving me a marathon session of recording here, so hopefully we'll get him in and out of here. But no, I thought I know you've been doing draft work. You've been publishing great stuff on Patreon, which people should be following. A couple things on ATL 29. So I'm not throwing too many curveballs at you as far as like, hey, Glen, have you watched this second division player from Germany? I'm not going to do that to you, but I know you've been watching, and we're getting close. And the Hawks have 2 first-round picks, and it's interesting because of what they need and what they don't need. And I mean, this is very broad on purpose, but yeah, I mean, it's not what you and I often talk about. Philosophically, what would you be trying to get out of this if you're the Hawks? Like, they have 2 first round picks, but they have a core 5. I think they're starting 5 that happen to be, again, their top 5 prospect / players / priorities actually form a coherent starting 5, which is not how most teams are. Like, they have those guys put together. It's, of course, Trey, Dyson, Zach, Jalen, and Onyeka. After that, there's some uncertainty for sure. They have some veterans, et cetera. But, like, to me, that gives me a little bit of freedom if I'm the Hawks going into the draft, where you don't have to draft anything. You can draft the guys you want or the archetypes you want or whatever. But do you feel the same way? Or are you trying to get something specific out of this draft for the Hawks?
I do think they have some flexibility. For me, there's a couple of things that I think we see people talk about on social media a lot. One is, are they just going to give the backup point guard spot to Kobe again? Mm-hmm. Right? I think Hawks fans are like cringe,
Well, I by the way, my answer to that is I don't think so, but that's,
Yeah. And this year we've talked about, like, they swung that opportunity to Dyson that helped him grow offensively. There was ROI there. But they would have won, I don't know, 3 or 4 more games if they had an actual professional backup point guard, whatever the right number is there. The other part is, what do they actually think Mo Gay can do? Can he be a regular part of the rotation next year? Can he be the backup power forward? Can he play some slide between the 4 and the 5 at all? Do they feel like he's strong enough to do that? Do they feel like he's back in that? And so I feel like those are the 2 players that really, impact, like, do we want to draft someone that can play right away, or do we have the luxury to draft someone that we have in College Park for half the season and not really feel like we have to? So to me, like those, the fluidity around those two players, maybe a little bit around Dom Barlow, I don't think he should really matter in their draft plans. Even though offensively, he shows a lot of potential to kind of fit into. He's really good DHO, decent handle, all that sort of stuff. Shooting's coming along. But for me, it's like I feel like at 13, I want them to draft a wing, a combo forward defender with a lot of size and length. That's really what I would prefer. And then at 22, if they stay at 22 and all that sort of stuff, I feel like the center position is pretty deep. And I feel like there's a lot of point guards that are pretty, some of them are older, but they're more ready to play right away. So if you want to have someone that comes in and competes with Kobe, for that backup spot. So I think if they go combo forward 2 for 2, totally fine as well, because man, they really got killed when Jalen was not available to the position. So that's broadly how I'm thinking about their approach, for good or bad.
No, I'm actually glad you brought that up, because I haven't talked about that particular avenue of like the game theory part of it all, and not the Sam Vecini podcast. Shouts to Sam, but the game theory of it all, of like, you don't want, partnering picks together. Like, do you want to try to project a little bit and say what's going to be there at 22 and think about that when you're picking at 13? It's harder to do on the outside. I would always stress to fans in particular that don't have intel and things like that, like, it's never as easy as people make it seem like it is. Like, oh, all you have to do is just wait and get this guy here. And it's like, well, if that's your guy, you can't always wait. Like, you got to be, you want to be reasonable. You don't draft someone that you think is going to go be available at 35 at 13. You don't want to do that, but you do want to, like, not necessarily just cross your fingers if there's a guy you love to get into 22. And you're right. There are options if you want to go with what you laid out. Like, okay, if you want to get a forward, combo forward, whatever at 13, you could get some combination of Carter Bryant being available, or Collin Murray-Boyles being available, or, there are Cedric Coward being available. There's some guys there that are in that theoretical range. And then you do have some depth at center. Like, if you wanted, so for instance, as we're recording this recently, a good friend of the podcast, Jonathan Wasserman at Bleacher Report, does a great job full-time over there on the draft. He came out with a 2 center mock. He gave the Hawks 2 centers, and I wrote about it on Patreon. People were like, what is this? I'm like, number one, he's not a Hawks person. He's just doing a mock draft. And no, I don't want them to take 2 centers. That would drive me crazy. I wouldn't want that. But also, I can't be a hypocrite and be like, you can't do that under any circumstances. I would prefer that not be what I would do. But also, you might get in a bad spot. Like, for instance, what happened in this mock was, and I'll stop being long-winded, Derek Queen was available. So he falls to 13. Totally fine with me. Take Derek Queen at 13. The thing is, if you turn around at 22 and your best 2 guys available on your board are still centers, what do? You take another one? I'm not saying you can't take another one. It's just interesting to me. So it is really interesting to think about it the way you laid it out there, like about priorities and where you draw your lines, because you might have a clean fit. If you could somehow come away with, Carter Bryant at 13 and Thomas Sorber at 22, like, yes, send the card in now. I'm in on that. But maybe that doesn't come your way. Maybe that's not attainable for you. Today's show was brought to you by Monarch Money. We've all done this in the past, I'd assume, but at times I've looked at my bank account and wonder what all my money happened to go between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment. It's easy to lose track sometimes. That's where Monarch Money comes in to help. It is your personal CFO at Monarch Money, give you full visibility and control over finances. And at Monarch Money, it's just not a budgeting app. It's instead a complete financial command center. You can track your accounts, your investments, and your spending all in one place. You can actually stop managing your money and start building wealth instead. When I started using Monarch, I realized how much money I was spending on food. That's just one thing each week that I was spending a lot of money on, honestly. It's just one example, but I budget smarter now and save more money in the process. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track your spending, even plan your long-term goals all in one place. And if you want to manage your money in conjunction with your partner, it can be smoother than ever as well. You can track shared accounts and personal accounts, set your goals, and stay on the same page without any of the stress. Take control of your finances right now with Monarch Money and use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com, 50% off your first year. That is monarchmoney.com. The code is LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year.
And then there are interesting young guards too, like Will Riley. I mean, young, but shows a lot of ability to play on the ball and off the ball, just that versatility. I know Jace Richardson gets a lot of, he's a smaller guy. I think he's tougher to fit defensively for the Hawks.
Yep.
And I like Traore a lot. He's young. I don't know how much he's going to kind of play early on, but he's has some decent size or length, I should say, for a guard as well. And so, you look at the success they had with Rasheer this past year, and it makes me sometimes wonder, like, they're going to go back and really kind of squeeze the European market and prioritize that this year as well. I don't remember if it's Berenger or Berengay. I don't know if people pronounce it. I've heard both.
I think me too. I think it's Berengay or Berengay even. Like he is French. I don't know.
Yeah. So and as we talked about in the last ATL 29, he's a guy I don't think he plays his rookie season a whole lot. He's pretty rough. But and
that's fine. By the way, to me, that's fine. I'm not worried about that, but fans are.
Yeah, right. As well. So I mean, for me, I think if I could pick for the Hawks at 13, if he's still on the board, I think Murray-Boyles is like the perfect guy for them to take. I feel like it's a total 50-50 if he's going to be there at 13. I feel like it only takes one team at 8, 9, 10, whatever, right, to be like, we want, we see Draymond in him or whatever it is they convince themselves they see, and all that sort of stuff. So, and that's the thing for me, is that you can't wait until the draft starts to find out, can we trade up in the right set? I mean, those are conversations you have to have weeks in advance, about, in this scenario, would you be willing to kind of, make a trade with us? That'd be that guy is my, kind of first choice, just because of the defensive value he would bring. When Jalen's off the floor, I think he's a guy who kind of replicates a lot of the stuff that Jalen can do, but has even a little bit more ability to defend on the ball against, higher level wings and things like that. So that's where I see it. And I do think they're going to have a shot at 4 or 5 different centers at 22, that might make sense for them. I know our friend Tyler really likes Hansen Yang, and, I don't think you need to use a first round draft pick on him, if I'm being honest about that. But there's a lot of center depth, but you look across the pool of centers and it's like, there are things one by one, there are some, he can do this, he can't do this. He can do this, he can't do that. And so you have to kind of figure out what it is that you are willing to prioritize there.
Yeah, I think that's right. And there are, in general, I do like the centers, but, Collin Murray-Boyles is someone I've liked the entire time. There are questions about the shooting. I do understand that. I was going to ask you, you just answered the question of who your ideal guy is. That's realistic at 13. He's high on my list as well. I think that some combination of, and this is not a huge outlier thing because they're kind of in this range of the consensus boards, but between Noah Essengay, Derek Queen, Carter Bryant, Collin Murray-Boyles are currently, I believe, 10 through 13 on the consensus board, and that's kind of all right, that makes sense to me. All 4 of those guys, if any of them are available, I'm totally fine with it at 13. I want to ask you something that I know you wrote about already that I haven't talked about much at all. Not a big physical defender, two-way big forward, and not a center either. And it's Liam McNeeley from UConn. And I like Liam McNeeley, and I don't know. I'm not over the moon. I'm not saying take him at 8 or whatever in the draft, but he's kind of really quiet. I feel like no one's talking about him. Mid first round projection, and if the Hawks are interested in a potential big wing shooter, he kind of fits that in a way that they don't really. I mean, obviously they have Rasheer, but they could definitely use another guy who projects as a high level shooter. The problem is maybe he didn't shoot that well at UConn this year. He shot really well at the lower levels. That's his reputation. But it's honestly kind of like Zach in some ways. Rasheer did not always have these great shooting numbers, but they think he's going to be a good shooter. What do you think of Liam McNeeley as a guy that I haven't talked about a lot, but I do like, and it's just interesting. He's kind of his own guy in this class. He's kind of in that middle range of 6'7", 6'8" wing who can shoot it, and that's appealing, but he's kind of the only one that's like that. Maybe Will Riley, but that's kind of it.
Yeah, and Riley's thinner, obviously, a little smaller, but
quite a bit.
But McNeeley, for me, if you're a sicko and go try to figure out why was what he produced at UConn so different than what his reputation was at lower levels, and because if you go he was a very high level shooter as a high school player, like really, really high level shooter. Why did that not translate to the college game? Is because UConn runs so much motion, and it was just a big adjustment for him. UConn runs as much motion as anybody in the league, right? And they run a lot of, elbow posts, so their center kind of operating there and stuff like that. But I think he's a great example of, something I've started to say a lot more often is that I think NBA teams largely believe they can teach almost anyone to shoot, right? If they're willing to work and, rework their form and stuff like that. But I think he's stands out as a guy who has value on both ends of the floor that is a little bit different than a lot of the others, So I don't mind at all if that's where they land at 13 with him, because of just that two-way upside that he has on both ends of the floor. If you're like, okay, don't know if he's going to shoot at his rookie season, but he was going to go out and work hard defensively, be versatile on that end, all those sorts of things. I think that's totally fine.
I'm going to ask this very kind of directly. Are you an Asa Newell believer?
I'm intrigued with him, right?
Yeah.
And obviously the offensive skill set is what really has to kind of come along for him to kind of really be functional on both ends of the court. He's got a lot of natural raw athleticism and skill that shows up on defense. That's there as well. But I mean, he has really good verticality. Can you teach him to like be a sophisticated screener and kind of have him rolling to the rim and those sorts of things? That for me, I think that's fine. 22 feels like a little bit of a gamble with him, unless you're just really convinced you can develop him to do the 2 or 3 things that he needs to do. But it's hard to find guys his size that have the kind of athleticism that he has. That's hard to find. And so I'm intrigued with him. Don't know if it'd be my first choice at 22 for the
Hawks. So you mentioned the centers a few times. Do you have a hierarchy of guys you prefer at that spot from a Hawks standpoint? And this is one of the advantages of having you on to talk about this, is that what the Hawks run in a way that most draft experts would not. You know what I mean? Do you have I'm not saying you have to have an order, but are you thinking about how much you might prefer versus certain centers versus other guys in this class for the Hawks in particular?
Well, and for me, it's hard because, like I said, person A does this, doesn't do that. Right? I'm really intrigued by Berenguer a lot, just because of his skill, and then Essengay a lot as well. I think they're labeling him a 4, but I think he can play kind of across both positions. That's there. Teams are playing smaller. I mean, we've seen this whole playoffs. Teams playing 5-guard lineups across the playoffs in a lot of cases. I think his versatility is interesting there as well. I'm less interested in the guys that have to play drop. I just think that doesn't really kind of fit where the Hawks are or what they do. And so can you adapt to that if you need to? If you have a guy who is awesome at drop and can kind of just eat up space in the middle, does that make things easier? That's not what they do with Onyeka. That's not what Onyeka is really ever going to kind of be good at. So I think they need someone who, we talk about, Nance fitting the offensive template of Okongwu. I think someone that fits the defensive template of Okongwu too. I mean, I want to see, we've seen a lot of other teams cross-match the 4 and the 5 on defense, not sending your center up the floor, letting the power forward follow a center up the floor for that middle screen and roll. And I think having someone who is almost interchangeable with Jalen across who's matched up with the 4, who's matched up with the 5, especially the other teams playing smaller, I think that makes sense. And for me, Essengay kind of really does fit that mold for me. And so he stands out. Again, not sure everyone else is calling him a center.
I get it though. Yeah, he's a big. I mean, he's big size. Also, I think he's going to be gone. I mean, it seems like for all the world he's going to go in the top 10. I mean, I don't know if that will happen, and I get it. He's going to take a while, I think, but a guy that I can certainly understand. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The NBA playoffs are in full swing right now. NBA Finals happening as we speak, and every night it delivers highly worth performances, major momentum shifts, and can't miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a player having a true breakout, there's never been a better time to get on the action than with FanDuel Sportsbook right now. And they make it easy at FanDuel to stay in the game both before tip-off and live when the game is happening. They have player props, performance strength, signature parlays, and more. And fans have more ways than ever to play smart and also to win big. That's especially true during the playoffs with so many hell of a games all the time. But it's also the case every single day of the year at FanDuel. They have offerings across the sports betting space, from over-unders to point spreads, money lines, game props, futures, player props, signature parlays, live betting, and so much more. And then every sport and league you can think of, as well as the NBA, of course, that we talk about all the time on the podcast. Plus, they have college sports, NFL, MLB, NHL, UFC. They have golf, tennis, soccer, boxing, and everything in between. And if you're new to FanDuel, it's perfect time right now. Sign up, head to FanDuel.com right now and place your first $5 bet. If that first bet wins, you get $200 in bonus bets at FanDuel. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. I haven't done a ton on the guards, like the pure guards, and I need to. So let's talk about that now for a second, because you mentioned it earlier. I've been saying the whole time, they don't have to draft a guard. Doesn't mean, but they also could. It'd be a harder sell for me in some ways at 13 because of the guys who are available. Not because there isn't a way you could draft a guy there, but I don't love any of the guards that I think are going to be available at that spot at 13, unless someone I would say surprisingly falls. Like if Yaka Shonis were to fall to 13, sure, you got to think about that. But like, I don't personally want to take Jace Richardson there. I don't personally want to take Nolan Traore at 13 or Ben Seraph or Walter Clayton Jr., but those are guys I like. Do you have an interest in any of those guys, even if it's 22? Like, and maybe there is the theory of pairing them with Kobe, and I'm a little scared off by that for this year in particular, because rookie guards generally are not very good. But if it's someone like Clayton Jr., who is an older, more polished rookie, I kind of buy it a little bit more, perhaps, versus if you're going like big game hunting with like someone like Seraph or Traore, I'd be surprised if those guys were like playable as rookies as far as like on a good team. So long-winded, but do you like any of these guards like in particular, or is it just like kind of the archetype that you might be interested in?
Not at 13, I don't. Right. For me, I think if you ask about the guy who has a lot of upside to be really smart with the ball in his hands, it's Will Riley. Like that, I mean, he has a ton of ability, and I watched, I think, 6 of his games. As I was getting ready to write, which is the most I've watched on anyone, because I was like, he's on the ball, he's off the ball, he's this, he's that, he's this, he's that. Everything he did was fluid. Everything he did was intelligent. He had a high level of processing, and so I could see NBA teams being attracted to that because he is a very high level processor on offense, and he just plays hard, and he doesn't care if he's on the ball, doesn't care if he's off the ball. When he's off the ball, he's trying to move and create a screen or, all that sort of stuff. And so I think his processing stands out a little bit. If you're wanting a guy who can run your second unit offense, like, I don't think there's anybody that I want to take at 13 there. I know that Hawks fans, Walter Clayton Jr. is kind of getting some, and he's a very high level player, but he's not some like great athlete. He doesn't have a ton of size, but he knows what he's doing. He absolutely knows what he's doing. But at 22, does that make sense to me? I'm like, see if you can trade into like 32 or 33. I have no idea if he's still going to be there, but
sure.
For me, it's like my dream would be, CMB at 13, and if they really want to guard, if Riley makes it to 22, I don't know if he will or not. But I'd be fine with that, while acknowledging Riley's not going to play a lot his rookie year.
Yeah, Will Riley, I mean, I haven't talked about him a lot. He's really interesting in that he measured 6'8" without shoes. Like he's tall, not super long for that size, but also I double checked to make sure I didn't have it wrong in my notes, and I don't. He measured at 185 pounds at 6'8". Like that is rail thin. Like he's the only guy.
It's a V clone.
Yeah, I mean he's the only guy that weighs less than 199 that is over 6'5", and he's more than 6'8". Like he's probably the skinniest player in the entire class at the moment. Maybe there's a center I'm not thinking of or whatever, but like he is really thin. And that is fine. Like he could fill out a little bit. Reece Shay's not that far away from that. Obviously, he's a little bit bigger than that, but nothing crazy. I like Riley. I'm with you. I think it's going to take a little while, but that's okay. I keep coming back to this, and I want to ask you maybe more directly. Not like, how much do you care if one of these guys can help the Hawks in year one? Because I personally, would it be nice to get one of the two that can help the Hawks? Sure, but my baseline for rookies is always just like they're not very good. And some of these guys, given that the Hawks are going to try to win games this year, I mean, I can't imagine Will Riley helping them win games. And that's not a knock on him as a prospect. Right. It's just more of the reality of him being, he'll be 19 years old and weigh 190 pounds. I mean, and by the way, he's not alone. There's a lot of these guys like that where I'm like, is he going to help you anytime soon? Baron J is the same thing. I think he's going to be in the G League a lot of the draft, which is fun. Again, I like him a lot. That's totally fine with me. But how much do you care about that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think so much of that comes down to, can they add a couple of veterans to their rotation?
Of course.
They were leaning into Mann and Yang and Levert a lot. Can they get 8, 9, 10 guys? The guy that the guy that jumps out to me is like, can you get a guy like Landry Shamet who's just gonna be
he's available. He's available on the market, Glenn.
He's available. So like that lets you not play Will Riley or a guy like him for a year or possibly more than that. And so for me, that's what I look at. When I feel like the center's position is so deep, like don't waste the 22 on the center. Like see if you can trade up into the top part of the second round, and you probably still get a pretty good kind of project center that's there. The thing that I think about is I think Murray-Boyles is one of the guys that's probably most ready to play right away defensively.
I agree.
At least.
Yeah.
And then I don't, like I said, I have no idea if he makes it to 13. No, I have no idea if he makes it to 13. But if they came away with Murray-Boyles and Fleming, how would you feel about that? Like two just physical defenders.
That's a good hypothetical. I would be totally fine with that. I would like it. I'm sure we'd get questions. I'm going to include you with this as well of like, wait, the Hawks just drafted 2 more like combo forward power forwards. Don't they know they have Jalen Johnson? Will be the question we'll get, Glenn. I promise you that's going to happen. But no, I would like that. I'm not saying that's exactly what they have to do, but I continue to be of the mind that you just can't have too many of these guys. And if it becomes a problem where you have too many, you can trade one of them for value. Like it's not a problem to me. And because Jalen is so versatile, that helps a lot too. Because even if those guys hit, they can play with Jalen. Like Jalen can play small forward. Like I think Jalen's a 4 primarily, but it's like he can't play with another big power forward kind of guy. Yeah. I love Murray-Boyles. Fleming, I think the fan base that I hear from is higher on Fleming than I am, but that's not because I'm not high on Fleming. Like I think that I'd be a little bit wary of him at 13, but like at 22, sure, sign me up for Fleming at 22. That's totally fine. I don't know about his processing, but he has the physical tools that you just can't. I mean, the 7'5" wingspan.
His motor is ridiculous.
Yeah, he plays really hard, and he can shoot. I mean, it's not like he's a great shooter. He shot the ball really well this year. Before that, a little bit mixed, but yeah, I don't know what the upside is on Fleming, but like that's a valuable player. Somebody compared him recently to Drake to like a bigger version of Jay Crowder, and I was like, that actually makes some sense to me. And Jay Crowder was good. I mean, obviously he's a local product, but he was out of the league after a while, but like was a valuable, like archetypal, like big physical 2-way wing player that can kind of mess with you and be physical,
he's a guy winning teams wanted on their team.
Yeah. All these guys, and that's the thing about having these 2-way big forwards or big wings. Every team's going to want them. Like every team wants them or needs them especially because you can't have too many. You just cannot have too many of those guys. And drafting 2 of them, sign me up. I'm good.
So the question I have for you is, let's say they feel like they have to get to 7 or 8 or whatever. I don't have draft order in front of me, but to get Murray-Boyles, would you trade both picks to get up to like 7 to get him, or do you feel like you need like a high second round pick as a fallback option for a center? What if they combine those picks to trade up for the guy that they really really want? How harshly would you criticize that, or would you say like, no, it makes sense?
I'm on the record and I'll be consistent. I don't like that. I would not do that in a vacuum. I've also said I don't think it's crazy. Like if you identify the guy that you want, it's not crazy to go get him. I am not a big trade proponent in general, like across drafts, and especially this year, I don't love that idea. And Murray-Boyles, like I like him a lot, but is he the kind of guy? For me, if you're going to do that, you got to think he has even real upside to me. Not like star upside, but I mean like high level starter, like $30 million a year player kind of upside. Because look, not to harken back to this, when they traded up for Hunter all those years ago now, I liked the prospect and hated the trade. And I can that's kind of it'd be different. They'd give up even more for Hunter. They overpaid in the trade, all those things. But like, I probably feel the same way. Like, it would help me probably just be honest that it was Murray-Boyles, who I really do like, and not someone that I was a little bit lower on. But honestly, probably the most popular one is Collin Murray-Boyles from fans. Fans want Collin Murray-Boyles because he's 7 feet tall. I mean, I'm being funny that's literally the reason why they want him. I'm pretty sure. But I get it. I don't think I would do it. That's my long-winded way of saying I wouldn't like it. I don't think, but only because of the value and the way that I view the draft. Generally speaking, I would just want 2 swings. Like even though I like Collin Murray-Boyles, I'm not confident enough that I'm right to want to trade 2 picks for 1. Basically,
it makes sense. And I think the other variable there is this is a deep draft class. So, this is a deep class. So 22, I think, has more value than it oftentimes has. And going back to the Hunter trade, like I remember the night before that draft, I said, seems like the Hawks and Timberwolves are in a bidding contest to get the 4 to draft Hunter. And the Hawks paid a very high price to get there. But then the Wolves drafted a guy that basically never played for him and ended up playing for the Hawks, a little bit.
I mean, no, that's every draft's different, but you're right. And it's also, maybe I have PTSD of trying to explain my position to Hawks fans who knew that I had Hunter in my top 5 in that class. And I'm like, guys, it's really hard to say. I like the player. You can like the player and not like the trade. It's possible. Right. And it was, I feel good about that now still. Like, Hunter became a pretty good player. Still hated the trade. So it's like...
It was the valuation was like no other franchise is going to pay this price to get here for that. So and it didn't help that like Redis didn't turn into anything, really.
That was not helpful, to be sure.
But no, for me, I think when I look at this draft, it looks like a fun class. It looks like a deep class. It looks like there's enough depth there that you don't have to move up unless you just really feel like one guy is going to like fill a role that you just have to have. And if you really, really believe that, then that's something that you got to defend after you do it. And so it is going to be interesting to see how that goes. I do think there's enough center depth that they can decide at 22. Do we pick a center now, or do we try to trade up to 32, 33, 34, try to trade into that range and still get one? Can they accommodate 3 rookies? That feels like a lot.
It does, especially when you still have Jurisic out there too, who I don't know what their plan is with him, but they like him enough to brought him in. I will ask you one more thing. I'm going to get because I promise you I'll get you out of here. I'm just going to ask you. I want to give my opinion for now. Do you think they have to have draft a center? Like at some point? Are you because I know a lot of people were like they have to get a center in this draft, and I don't think so. But what do you think about that?
I mean, no, I don't feel like it's a requirement at all. Like I said, if they come away with CMB and Fleming, I'm going to be very happy with that. I feel like they need versatile defenders with size and strength and impact. Defenders that have like I said, have versatility. That's the thing they were missing last year. It is a miracle that they basically ended up being a league average defense. A lot of that has to do with Dyson. Like a ton of that has to do with Dyson. Yeah. But if you go look at like someone asked me like what was their defensive rating before the trade deadline, after trade deadline, is basically the same thing, and which is crazy to me when you're playing Don Barlow. I mean, I love the potential that Don Barlow has, but what they asked of him was just a really tough ask for him. It was a tough ask for him, And Mo Gay, man, he made big strides, but I still think Hawks fans think that he can be an automatic rotation player next year, and I'm hopeful. I'm rooting for him and all that sort of stuff. But like I said, so much of this comes down to what role do they see Kobe in next year? What role do they see Gay in next year? But then it's they're smart, a really, really smart front office. I've never worked in front office before. I just say that doesn't matter at all. We're just picking the best player.
Which I kind of default to that more than the other way. Like I'm not saying you have to be a total zealot on best player available. Like one more thing. I would not draft 2 guards, and I would not draft 2, and I would not draft 2 centers. That'd be my only requirement as far as positional stuff is that I wouldn't take 2 guards and I wouldn't take 2 centers. And any other combination positionally, I'd be fine with personally. So
same for me. And like I said, part of it is Jurisic, probably need to make room for him next year. But for me, I like him. Like he could probably get a good center in like 32, 33. But the big question is, does that person go on is he willing to go on a 2-way contract?
And that's where that fits.
Yeah,
agreed. And you also could just look. I don't mean to be reductive. You also could just sign Larry Nance and another guy. Like you could just sign 2 veterans. Like you don't have to have a developmental center when your starting center is 24 years old. You just don't have to do that. Maybe it's because I like Okongwu more than the fan base does, but you just don't have to have a draft pick center. I mean, if they do it, that's fine. I won't be upset about it. I just think you don't have to. Like if Okongwu was 33 years old, I would understand the thought process, but he's good and young and
controlled. And then you have like you look at what Miami dealt with last year. Like they invested a lot in Ware, and he showed a lot of improvement last year.
Yeah,
but the first 40 games of the season, he cost them games just because he was inexperienced.
That's what a lot of players. I mean, if the Hawks turn around and are playing a rookie a lot, almost any rookie, it's going to hurt them. Yeah. That's just what it is. There's a balance.
I think Ware's going to be really good. I think he's going to be really good. But Miami made a conscious decision to invest a lot of minutes in him. And I think that they were right to make that decision. Are the Hawks at a place where they can do that next year? Clock ticking one more year on Trey. Trey's tenure. No, I don't think that's the case. And so for me, like I said, if you take Yang at 35ish or whatever, and he's willing to be on a 2-way contract, and after the trade deadline, oftentimes the spot frees up and you can promote him into a real. That's all fine. I think his offensive potential is great, but defensively, he has a long way to go to be playable on the defensive end floor. So for me, it's like I really want them to get 2 guys who can defend multiple positions, preferably like combo forward types. They get a 3-4 combo and a 4-5 combo. I'm very happy with. That's what I'm rooting for. Sure. If they feel like they need a guard that can really, if they end up with Will Riley at 22, I'm totally fine with that. But acknowledging, I don't think we can just count on Kobe playing 82 next year. So got to have another player.
I mean, I like Kobe. I still think Kobe's going to be good if I had to guess. Yeah. But also, you cannot go into the season with Kobe as your only backup guard. They're going to either have to draft somebody or sign somebody. It's not going to be Kobe by himself. I just can't see that happening. All right, Glenn. Well, thanks for doing this spur of the moment draft conversation in the midst of our player capsules. I wanted to get your thoughts. I know you've been studying, so I appreciate you taking the time. I'm going to try not to bug you now for a couple weeks. That's my pledge. At the very latest, we have a summer league preview to do on like July 5th. That we
Best episode of the season to me, right? You're like, Glenn, the downloads are not awesome.
I mean, I don't know who's going to be announcing the summer league roster, so they might wait forever to announce the roster. We'll probably know who's going to play at some point in time. Anyway,
we're going to get a POBO at 3:00 in the morning at some point, and
yeah, it's good. The day of the draft, they're going to announce the POBO hire. All right. Well, Glenn, thank you for doing this. Before I sign off, where can folks follow all of your fantastic work on the Hawks online?
Yeah, ATL 29. Patreon link is in both my bio on Twitter /X and Blue Sky. So go find that there. And probably got, probably 8 more draft prospects I'm going to try to kind of hit in the next week and a half, 2 weeks, whatever it might be. As it always is, day job dependent right now. But I'm excited to kind of lead into some guys that I am actually, looking at who Hawks fans are talking about on social media and going to try to kind of swing towards some analysis around some of those. I might agree on some, might not agree on some, but I'll state my perspective one way or the other.
Well, there you go. Again, people should be following your work. It's fantastic. I appreciate all the time as always. If you're listening to this podcast this far, thank you, number one, but please subscribe to the show. Lots on Hawks anywhere you found your podcasts, and we'll see everybody next time.